so much. Well, by way of introduction, I just want to say how important I think this People's Assembly is. Because I think what we're doing here is building a movement. We're giving out hope, and we're showing that alternatives really are possible. The government would love you to believe that austerity is inevitable, but we're here to say that that is a big, fat lie. Because the economic crisis isn't a crisis for the government, you know. This is the opportunity that they've been waiting for, to roll back the state and to cut spending permanently. And what we've got to do is to demonstrate that those alternatives are possible and to join up our voices all around the country and to bring real momentum behind that vision of a very different kind of economy. Now, I've really been enjoying the session so far this morning. It was incredibly inspiring. But you know what? The environmental crisis was relegated to a subclause, and we have been relegated to a slightly drafty marquee. I am really glad to see all of you here, but you know, the environmental crisis is every bit as urgent as the economic crisis. And you can't tackle the one without the other. So I'm really glad that we've got this opportunity to look at how the two are connected. You know, 80 years ago, J.M. Keynes said, look after employment and the budget will take care of itself. And in a way he was right, because investing in jobs has to be the way out of the economic crisis, not slashing employment, not slashing welfare. But 80 years later, with the full knowledge that we have of the climate crisis, we need to combine what he said with the words of Sharon Burrow, who's the General Secretary of the International Trade Union Congress, who said, there are no jobs on a dead planet. Tackling the economic crisis and the environmental crisis have to be done together. And the good news is that the green economy is far more labour intensive than the fossil fuel economy it replaces. And that's why investing in the green economy isn't a distraction from the financial crisis. It's the direct route out of it, providing the jobs that will ensure that people can pay the taxes that go into the revenue that gets this country back on its feet. And you know, in a way, in spite of this government, it's already beginning to happen. I want to take you back to the Tory party conference last year. I apologise, it's a painful experience. But if you reimagine yourself there, you will imagine and see George Osborne saying, we're not going to save the planet by putting our country out of business. You know, which really does beg the question many of us have been asking, which planet is George Osborne on? Because the economic reality speaks for itself. Last year, the green economy was worth £122 billion in the UK alone. That was 9% of the overall economy. Even more significantly, the low-carbon goods and services sector employed almost 1 million people last year. That's more than the auto industry and telecoms put together. The UK renewables industry is already worth £12.5 billion. And if the government does meet its 2020 renewable energy target, that industry alone could employ 400,000 people, with a cumulative value to the economy of £60 billion. And that's why so many of us have been calling for what we've said is a Green New Deal. We take inspiration from Roosevelt in the 30s in the US when he faced that big depression. And the way out of it was by investing in jobs. In his case, jobs in building roads and railways. I don't want to see roads, I'd like to see railways, and I'd like to see the green infrastructure that we're going to need for the clean energy century that we've got to have now. So let's put that money into insulating every single home, addressing the fact that today, in the 21st century, in the 7th richest country in the world, 6.5 million people still live in fuel poverty. So yes, let's have that green industrial revolution. And that means the renewable energy, the energy efficiency, and it also means green transport too. Because we have, for example, a rail system which is completely dysfunctional, that is taking money from us, the taxpayer, and putting it into the hands of private shareholders. And that's why next week I'm going to be introducing into the House of Commons a private member's bill to bring our railways back into public ownership. And while we're at it, might not be successful, but I'm going to do it. And while we're at it, you know, when we're looking at the assets that we have, let's look at the Royal Bank of Scotland and say that we own 84% of that bank, and we do not want it investing in tar sands, in coal and in fossil fuels. That money needs to go into real investment in a green economy. And you know, when people say, well, there's no money for all of this investment in jobs, let me just suggest a few places we might find some. Let's look at the 100 billion price tag on the replacement of Trident over the next 30 years. Let's look at properly tackling tax evasion and tax avoidance that costs us £120 billion every single year. Let's have a UK Robin Hood tax that could raise us £20 billion. You know, actually we could even just borrow with low interest rates, as low as they are. But let's look as well at credit creation. Quantitative easing has got a bad name because basically the money just went to the private banks. But put that money directly into the economy, into the small businesses that are the heart of our economy here. And we could really have that green revolution. So when people say, and when the government says, there is no money, my plea to you is to say, that is bollocks. There is plenty of money. There is money. The question is who has the money, how the money is created, and how that money is spent. Just the Sunday Times last week pointed out that 1,000 of our richest citizens have increased their wealth since the financial crash by £190 billion. So don't tell me there's no money. Okay, so I'm being told I've got 2 minutes and I want to say two other things, because given the fact that what I'm describing, I hope, is simply common sense, it's a no-brainer, why wouldn't you do it, then why isn't the government doing it? Well, part of the reason, I think, is because we've had a corporate capture of this government. The obscene lack of political leadership from ministers who continue to prioritise the corporate profits of the fossil fuel industry above the public interest. And maybe that's not surprising, because fully 125 MPs and Lords, one-third of the 125 MPs and Lords who make up this government have links either to the fossil fuel, energy, or the financial sector. Executives at big finance and energy firms are routinely appointed to serve on government bodies or regulatory bodies. 50 employees of companies like EDF Energy, Empower and Centrica have been placed in the heart of government to work on energy issues over the past 4 years. Last summer, a Freedom of Information revealed an exclusive training course for senior Whitehall officials, and the programme was aiming to give civil servants an understanding of the energy industry. And you will be reassured to know that that training course, paid at our expense, was being provided by Shell. So people, we have a major crisis. Are you waving that red one at me yet or not? Oh, good. So we need to bring back our democracy back to the people, and we also need to challenge, in my final few moments, is that we cannot go on with an economic growth model that we have at the moment. You cannot go on growing infinitely on a planet of finite resources. That means that the investment that we need to see in the green energy infrastructure that is so crucial, that has to go ahead, but at the same time it means taking money away from things like the nuclear industry, the arms trade and so on, because we cannot go on with the kind of economic model that we've had today. I am really running out of time. I want to end with one little cartoon which I want to describe to you because I haven't got it with me. But it's about how all of what I've said is also about good news. It's about a positive vision. There's a wonderful cartoon of a professor, and he's got on behind him a whiteboard with all of the things that we could have if we moved to a green economy, like more of the jobs, affordable housing and better insulation and so on. And then someone puts their hand up in the audience with a little speech bubble saying, but what if climate change isn't real and we've created a better society for no reason?